The Flying Lion says,
boys, hell is real.
2023 Supporter Shield champs.
So glad that I can be back with people who know that it's a Flying Lion.
It shows how much we all love this club.
Yeah, just a fan of the sport, you know.
It's definitely tougher to be an academy player than it is a pro.
In this club, you don't play just for the club. You play for the fight.
Jersey swap, car of the week, trivia question of the week.
Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of the Flying Lion podcast. We have Kenta joining us tonight. For those who remember Kenta from before, we had him, I believe, on earlier this season, but thanks again for joining us.
Yeah, thanks for having me on. It's always a fun time being on.
Sam, how we doing?
Doing good. I mean, I'm excited to be back too. You know, I was expecting to get an intro like Kenta, but I guess not, you know, as a regular, after being out a week. But yeah, happy to be back.
Rejuvenated, ready to talk about FC Cincinnati?
Rejuvenated for sure. I've got a lot of pent up FC Cincinnati talk, obviously, being out a week. You know, you've been hearing from Ryan, a little bit from Kevin last week. So I don't know. I got some stuff to get off my chest, you know?
Yeah, a lot to talk about. We're going to really hit the end of the transfer window in this episode, talk a little bit about NYCFC's home match. I know everyone is, thrilled to talk about that one, but just some storylines that came out of that one. Second part of the episode, we'll recap a little bit of FC Cincinnati 2 news and then a preview for the Philly match. But what a crazy end of the summer transfer window. My expectations were like, you know what? I think our roster's pretty full. Like, let's see what they can do. But Chris Albright, man, just continues to do his thing. So we'll dive right into that. End of the transfer window moves in with Yedlin going out. Big surprise there. Kenta, what were your thoughts about that one when it came out last week?
Yeah, I don't know how long Yedlin would have stayed here long term. You know, you kind of look at the big picture of this project, and I think even at the beginning of the season, Lucha is getting a younger group in here, not avoiding the fact that he didn't want to be here. But I think with this team, you kind of have to utilize each window to not let a ton of guys just go without a contract, right? And I think Yedlin's contract was expiring, so it makes a lot of sense. I don't think Cincinnati would have been able to match the offer that he got in terms of his contract extension once he got the move. So it's a shame, but I also don't think schematically or tactically speaking, he was a perfect fit. He's not really a wingback, so maybe it's a move that's beneficial mutually in terms of what the player can do, and also for Cincinnati to get new guys in and get a bit younger, I guess, as well. But no, it's surprising for it to happen at this stage of the season when you're trying to chase trophies and you've got a veteran and a leader on this team moving on. Yeah, I mean, with that few of games left, I think, Sam, would you echo that as well?
Yeah, absolutely. I think, this move, out of the guys that have left the squad so far this transfer window, I think this one was like, whoa. Like, I don't think anybody kind of saw this one coming, especially, the impact that he's had not only for our team, but in the Cincinnati community as well, right? Like, he has his own line of clothing through FC Cincinnati. So definitely thought, we'd be able to work something out with him. Was thinking this might be a spot for him to call home for, when he retires type feeling. But yeah, Ryan, I mean, we're losing a veteran presence out the window here. But once again, you're looking at the roster structure of things, and it kind of made sense to, hey, if he's not going to sign long term, let's kind of let's try and get something out of him.
Yeah, and it was mutually, for both the player and for the team. Kenta, like you mentioned, long term, we didn't know how long DeAndre was going to be here with his option, expiring. But at the same token, like Sam mentioned, you're losing that veteran guy. You're down in this stretch run. And I think, honestly, in NYCFC's match a little bit, you lost a little bit of that voice out there, especially, with Miles not being there. You obviously had Miazga, but Yedlin's voice is going to be missed. But let's hope that, the additions that we brought in, we'll kind of get to that here in a second, can do their thing for that spot. But before we get to the inbound, the other one on the big day, which I believe was Thursday, Sergio Santos also out. Again, just because of the moves that were in, Brenner coming in, Marjuk coming in as well, you got to make spot on the roster. So Santos, I think we had circled him, and Baird, I think I had said Kann maybe potentially as well would be one to look at. But somebody on the senior roster needed to go. Kenta, any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think when you see someone waived, or I guess it's a contract buyout, right? After the window closes, it just signifies that they were trying to sell him, and it just didn't happen. Look, he's I think from what I know, right, with what I've seen in the locker room and what I know of Sergio, that he's absolutely loved by the players. But it's just a matter of sometimes he just wasn't able to stay healthy enough, and we're looking at, I think, a different story if he stayed healthy this season. I don't think this happens. Even if the goal contributions or the production isn't there, if he stayed healthy, we're having a different discussion. But he didn't, and they brought in Kai early on, and it kind of felt like at some point, whether it was mid-season or by the end of the year, that Sergio wasn't going to be on this roster. But yeah, it's a shame because I think when he is healthy, and we saw it back in the first year Cincinnati made the playoffs. He can be so dynamic, and I think he fits a scheme like this very well, where he can stretch the field so well. But just the inability to stay healthy ultimately just led to the lack of production, I guess.
Yeah, I was going to say the same thing. Healthy and consistency were the two biggest things that kind of went towards him being the one. Waiving him kind of clears space, once again removes kind of that, what Ryan was touching on, that redundancy that we kind of saw with strikers coming in, and being able to add those pieces. It was kind of like, hey, like writing's on the wall, unfortunately for him. But yeah, I mean, once again, huge locker room guy, and you hate to see another one of those guys go, right? You see Yedlin go, captain, Santos, once again, one of those. I mean, we talked to Alvas Powell last year, and he was like, yeah, like, who are the funniest guys in the locker room? It would be me, Santos, so. But once again, one of those moves that had to happen.
Yeah, that's football. I mean, at the end of the day, they're all
That's
professional
business.
about it.
Yeah.
It is business. It's a bummer, again, to have two, vibes guys, from the locker room that are removed within a week like that. I mean, that's a big shock to the guys as a whole, I think, if you look at it, and maybe the result kind of echoed that in some aspects. So who's that new vibes guy in there? I think Hagglund's, definitely up there on that list for that. But for guys coming in, we obviously had seen the Yedlin move first, but we were all thinking, hey, right wing back is probably the spot that we're going for. We had heard a little bit from Tom Bogert, we're looking interleague for that. And the first one that we see as, hey, this is a possibility, is Brenner. And you hear it, you heard it, in February. There was a little bit of, at that time, a little buzz going on. I think they were talking to his agents about the possibility. But it developed over the last several days of the window. I think from what I had heard today as well on Soccer Wise is that they kind of mended the way that they ended their relationship. So he had talked to the front office, a month or two ago and said, look, I'm sorry for the way this ended. The relationship kind of, maybe said in the future, but then, it happened, several weeks later, and here Brenner is coming in on loan. There's around a $5 million purchase option, again, per Tom Bogert for that. Great move, I think, in total. I think dynamic forward. Let's see how he plays with Denke versus how he did with Vasquez. But Kenta, your thoughts on this big move?
Yeah, I mean, it's easy to be excited, I think. You look back on Brenner's time in Cincinnati, didn't get off to the greatest of starts, but his last kind of full year that he was here, I mean, he was tied Brendan for the most amount of goals. I think it was like 18 goals that year. He was incredible for the team, and he brings a different look at the forward position than what we kind of have with Denke and also, I guess, Kamara to an extent. Yeah, I mean, for a TAM contract player, I think Cincinnati fans have kind of been upset about how certain other teams that shall not be named have gotten very experienced European players at non-DP level contracts. So to kind of get a familiar face on the team that's quite proven in this league at a TAM level contract for the rest of this year has to be exciting, I think, if for the remaining stretch of the season. We'll see how many matches he actually plays in the regular season, but
yeah. great point, because especially the fact that he probably took less money to come back here. So for all those that are wondering about like his attitude coming into it, we knew how it ended. Like, he took less money to come back to this club where he was successful. He's got an established relationship with Evander, so I think that definitely helps things too. I'm really excited about the prospect. I really want to see how it works logistically with working, like I said, with Denke, with Evander there, maybe with the new wing backs too. But I think he knows the coaching staff. He knows the city. There's a lot of plus with that. The downside, I think we'll talk about a little bit later, is we don't have a large, amount of time to see this all come together. But Sam, your thoughts? I think you were really shocked when I texted you about it, and I don't think it was on my radar. I don't think a lot of people had it on their radar.
No, not at all. I mean, you want to talk about a big headliner. This is just coming out of the blue. I mean, you touched on in February, right? We got some inklings. I think Louro put some stuff out where it was like, hey, they're talking, he'd be interested, if there ever was, down the road. And then all of a sudden it's like, hey, he's interested. Like, he wants to come back, last week. And Ryan, I mean, you mentioned, he's already got this pedigree with the city in the MLS. Like, he's done it before. But to Kenta's point, I think what the big question mark is whether or not he can quickly regain his sharpness after kind of that slow stint in Serie A. And maybe we do see a similar, when he first came to the MLS, right? He may start a little slow, but hopefully he's able to pick up the pace a little bit, given we have guys like Evander, Denke, Buka, like, to be able to hold him up there up top.
Yeah, I think you both are spot on about that. The role that he plays right away will probably be a little bit limited until he gets fully integrated. I'm looking towards, maybe the last few matches of the season to really see, maybe a more polished Brenner. But the second part of this was the one that I think we were more expecting with the Marzuk move. It ends up being a loan in from Real Salt Lake. It almost seems like it'd be a true swap for Yedlin, but it wasn't. They were separate deals. But there is a purchase option for him. It will be a cash transfer if it comes to that as well. So that would be interesting to see. But again, a smart move. 2 loans at the very end of this, where it's not we're holding on to this player. It was a last minute thing, and then you're stuck with him for the following year. So there's a lot of flexibility. If it doesn't work out, no risk technically taken with that. And you have a guy that's played in matches, I guess, from what I've heard, in Real Salt Lake, that he wasn't playing his more preferred position. I think a wingback spot might be a little bit better for him. He was in a little bit of a lull. He wasn't getting a really good chance to start for the last, I think, like 10 or 15 games. So I think he could come in and win that spot. I don't know if he's got it locked in right away, obviously, but I think they see him as more of a solidified position than potentially an ender, just because of him being younger and new to the league. But Kenta, any thoughts on this move?
No, I have some friends over in Poland who I've done some MLS preview stuff for the last handful of years leading into seasons. So when this deal came up, they were on my radar. They're like, "What do you know?" And I'm like, I don't know who this is. He made his Poland debut in 2024, scored a goal in his debut, and he hasn't seen the senior team since. So like, I don't have a big database to go off of, and I admittedly don't watch a ton of RSL. So you put 2 and 2 together, it's I wish I had more, like insight into. I'm not going to claim that I have insight to what kind of player we're getting here, but I think with these younger players, and we have signed a lot of U22 guys over the last like 2 windows, right? It's really hit or miss. And luckily with the U22 system, like if it's a miss, you quickly just move on. In MLS, that's just kind of how it functions, and that's how it's been for FC Cincinnati too. Since they've been in the league, we've seen a ton of U22 players come in, and a lot of them moved on. So hopefully he's a hit, and we'll see where his fitness is, because again, he hasn't played a ton of minutes, and the lack of match fitness might be genuinely concerning. I don't know where that's at, but a U21 international from the Euros early in like June. He played in those matches. So you're getting international experience. You're getting a player that's going to want to prove himself after struggling at RSL. I think there's a good level of upside there if he's motivated to kind of get an extra step in.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the fact that he could play as a wide player or as a defender, and like you said, Ryan, kind of good upside with minimal risk. Feels more like that depth rotation piece. But if he can win the spot, he deserves to win the spot. But yeah, definitely a smart way to bolster multiple positions at once. But we lost, Yedlin, and having this guy to replace, obviously great to fill the spot of a U22, roster spot. But once again, you're losing that veteran presence in the same position and expecting this 21-year-old to come in and possibly start here in, playoffs.
Yeah, and that's where the risk is with these U22 moves, like you're saying. And we brought all these guys in. And for those who are unfamiliar, I don't think we expect a lot of these guys to make an immediate impact. If we look at the overall impressions of the window, I think it's a very positive window for, the inbound, like we mentioned, Marzouk, Brenner, Jabari, Giddy, Ender. We filled a lot of spots. We made the roster deep in a lot of places that we haven't seen a lot of MLS teams do, and using different mechanisms to get to that point. So big credit to, again, the staff for that. Outbound, like we mentioned with Baird, Santos, and Yedlin. And then some rumored ones just for fun that we had seen with Brian Reynolds, U.S., right wing back or right back, and Paulo Henrique, who is down in Brazil at Vasco da Gama. Another guy that apparently we had put an offer in, was on the radar of the Brazil national team. So that would have been a big swing with him. But didn't work out. Ultimately, though, again, we had some guys moving in. I think my overall impression of the window is very positive. Now, putting it all together, again, is the question. But we haven't seen a team with, I would say, as many youth players that we're expecting to perform at this high level. So let's see how Pat Noonan does with that. He doesn't usually give those guys the time of day. So I'm really intrigued by, what that looks like moving forward. Sam, you kind of put a little snippet here. I want you to kind of lead this on our overall impressions. So the best move in your eyes was Brenner, huh?
Yeah, I mean, I'd say Brenner is probably the best move. Once again, proven match winner, and instantly kind of raises the ceiling there. Not only for FC Cincinnati fans because we know him, but also he's done it in the MLS. But once again, to reiterate what we said, the most important question mark here is probably going to be that right back depth after Yedlin's exit. Who's going to fill that hole? We'll talk about that a little bit more here after the NYCFC match. And then smartest long play, I think Giddy, he obviously the scouting that we heard from everybody else on Twitter around the soccer universe. I mean, this kid's got upside, and they thought he was going to go to Europe. So hopefully he can potentially blossom into, a starter here in, this season, next season, and, for the future. But biggest gamble, I'm going to go with Jabari on this one. I kind of feel bad for him because, we loan him in and he's kind of that younger Kamara, right? He's kind of that younger Kai Kamara. And then we bring in Brenner and he's almost forgotten about immediately. So I think he could be an interesting one to watch. Obviously a nice weapon, being 6'4", but yeah, I just don't know short term how much he's going to be able to play and make an impact.
Yeah, we'll see with him especially. That's a good point. With the Brenner move in bound like that, I mean, the striker room is very deep. So we'll have to see, what pairing looks the best. Maybe that's in practice, obviously, that they're starting to see that. But in real life games, because let's face it, we're in the Shield stretch. We have playoffs coming up. We have to get that solidified. So finding that sooner than later, obviously, is the better thing. So, but overall, again, great window. One of the best I've seen, for FC Cincinnati, I would say. I think Albright was deep in his bag in this one and figuring out moves, loans, international spots. He did it all and isn't talked about enough with that. But Kenta, I want to ask you, just based on the whole MLS window as a whole, we had seen Thomas Muller come in. We had Son come into the league. There's so many big players. Any thoughts on, what the summer transfer window looked like? I think it was a massive one for MLS.
Yeah, it's big. You look at it from kind of name value, as you mentioned. I think Sonny has to be the biggest move, just purely from a fan standpoint. I know I'm more ingrained in Asian football than I guess the average MLS fan with what I do, but I know that move was very impactful in terms of bringing guys to the league, like just immediately wanting to kind of watch what Sonny does. Not just Asian fans, but like Prem fans. He's a player that genuinely is liked by pretty much everyone. I've heard of very few people that dislike Sonny, like actually dislike him. So yeah, I mean he's a player that's very liked, and you bring that kind of personality to LAFC that, the last time they went for a big name, it kind of just flopped with Giroud. So to be able to retry again in one of the big markets, I think that's big. And yeah, it's a really big deal, I think, because they're not going to get big names in the winter, likely. It's just not as big of a window for Europe to be able to bring in big names before the World Cup. So if you're trying to grow this league, which I expect MLS, they're trying to get as many eyes and attention in the league before the World Cup, so that after the World Cup they can say, hey, bring your friends and let's keep watching soccer in the second half of 2026. You need the big names there, and what better way to do it than to bolster up on big name talent now? And in that sense, they really were successful. So we'll see how those players turn out. Mueller and Son, I think their pedigree is just too high for them not to succeed. But I've said that about other players that did not do particularly too well in this league. So I've been proven wrong on multiple occasions about European players not playing well. So we'll see. But I have very high hopes that they'll do well. And Rodrigo De Paul, he's gonna be fine. It's Miami. He's gonna be fine.
I think it's impressive as a window, in a whole, and maybe that's because of the timing of the World Cup. That's a good point. I think compared to the year before, we had seen a lot of moves fall apart because of the window in MLS was shorter than over in Europe. So you didn't see that as much this year. I still think in the future they might shift more towards that with the potential schedule change. But yeah, I think that's a great point. I think with Sonny too, like, didn't they sell out of his jerseys? I mean, it's incredible the amount of interest in this player, and almost, to a level of Messi, if not maybe even higher in some aspects. So it's impressive. I think it's overall a net positive for the league and what we see moving forward, especially Thomas Muller going to like a Vancouver market like that too. I think that's positive. Obviously would have maybe like to see him in Cincinnati too for different reasons, but I think overall the way this played out was nice. But all of this to be said, this led into our match day against NYCFC at home. We still had a game to play. So we unfortunately lost, 0-1. Overall, that puts us at 16-4-8. Some big things going into this one. The new guys were in the building, so that's good to see that at least they're there. They're probably ready for training now this week. I don't believe that Giddy is still, in Cincinnati. I think they're working out some details with visas and whatnot with that. NYCFC was coming in on a heater, so that was very similar to some of the other teams we've had recently. And then there was a new pitch at TQL. I think that was a big surprise too, honestly. You had, out with the old from last year, I believe, and then we had in with the Bluegrass 365. So things that you don't really want to have to talk about being an impact for the team, but I felt like the play was a little bit slower on the night, honestly. So I don't know if that was, maybe not talked about as much with things, but the team looked a little bit sluggish, and I wonder if some of the passes weren't weighted accordingly. I don't know your guys' thoughts on that.
I don't know. The pitch definitely looked different.
It looked good, but the way it played was definitely different.
No, yeah, I know. In some, parts in the game, I think you could see, like you said, some of their passes may not have been weighted like they used to due to the feeling of the grass. I'm not going to put too much on the turf, put more on the players for that one. But yeah, the turf definitely looked a lot better, especially I know, Ryan, we talked about these past few games, especially around the 6-yard box was not good. A little like Celentano was a little muddy, right? Like even diving. But yeah, Kenta, what were your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I always get intrigued when people talk about, the turf pitch. Yes, I know nothing about it, and there are people that are so passionate about it, and it's it's something I wish down the line that I can invest more time into to kind of know different grass types and like how
Well,
each type of
that's a
grass
fun
plays.
fact. That's a
I was
fun
gonna
fact
say
you
it's a
would love to
homeowner
have in your
pride.
bag. Yeah.
Exactly. It's like, oh, well, they were playing on this kind of pitch. No wonder they played poorly. It goes against their style of play. I wish I knew that. I don't. I thought it was interesting with the match a couple days ago. Like they changed their tactics at halftime. I don't know if you guys were, obviously it feels pretty obvious, I would say, but they moved back to a back four in the second half. I don't know if that's something you're training for. Kind of going back to the transfers that you made, none of those players particularly fit the 4-2-3-1 system that they moved into in the second half. So that was just kind of an oddball, and obviously on paper it didn't work out either because you can see the goal and you don't score. So any way you shape it just feels very weird to make that shift at halftime. Not really sure what the mindset was there, but yeah, I think that was my biggest kind of takeaway. It was just very confusing. Because the spacing was all over the place on the pitch.
I think that's a good point, especially with how we had seen the team line up. I was not expecting Brad Smith to get the start out wide, but then to change it, middle of the match. At that point, it was still 0-0. You bring Kenji in as well, which was a little interesting.
Yeah.
There was just a lot, like you said, that I don't know if the players were quite ready for that. Switch of things. We had been playing pretty decent in that system, and then you go and change it up. I don't know, but yeah, the way that we started out, different back line. We'd obviously don't have Miles in this one. We don't have Luca or Luciano as well. Kubo was back on the bench, so that was nice to see. A typical front line from what we had seen in Portland, and then we had Anunga that was back as well. But yeah, the way that the match started, at least we did have some Evander chances, some shots from outside the 18. Roman was forced in some early saves. Just weird vibes overall on the night. Everyone seemed a little bit off in all aspects of things. So I think that's a good point. But Sam, any impressions, from this one?
Yeah, I mean, overall, like you said, it just felt weird. And I mean, obviously, we all watched the Portland game. So Evander, putting up shots from outside the 18 is, for us, it's like a guarantee, right? But once again, keeper made some good saves. Some of them were on like bouncing balls that he had to kind of deflect. But at some points, I know it's a little, but Evander, it felt like he was taking too many from outside the 18, which we know he can hit it.
With the forwards, like I think he loves the space and he knows that he can put them in. We've seen him do it.
Yeah.
The first half, I think you're right. It was a little forced. The second half, he was kind of a little bit out of the play in some regards. But yeah, it was definitely odd with that. And then, you see the goal was on a transition moment. So I believe that Miazga plays a quick ball to Anunga, turns it over, and they're on the break right away. Did you guys have the impression that Hagglund could have done something a little bit better? Maybe when he was closer by. I think he even motions his hand out that like Roman's coming out to like meet him. But if anything in that position, like foul the guy, like do something to prevent the goal at that point. It just was an odd play. It was a really good touch though by their player and underrated to get the ball out in front of him. Maybe a little bit miscommunication though with Hagglund and Roman on, was he coming out or not? Just again, weird.
Yeah, I don't know. I think, Ryan, you've got two guys in Hagglund and Miazga trying to chase this guy down, and
we
they
need
both
Miles
are coming
out there.
Well, they both are coming off of injury too, right? So you got to put that into factor too. Like if you're going to slide tackle somebody, you get a red card, prevent the goal, you might be injuring one of these guys. And we saw it in Miazga, later in the game.
Yeah, no, good point. And then second half, Kenta, like obviously we had to change formation. We had Kenji come in at half and then subs out 30 minutes later. It just seemed like things just weren't going well. Is that more of from our side, do you think, of things, or just NYCFC just has our number?
Well, they certainly match up well against this team, right? I mean, there's no denying that in terms of the last several matchups between the playoffs last year and kind of what's happened in the regular season this year. Yeah, it's they've had this team's number. There's no surprise there. But yeah, it was just a very confusing move. I don't know if it felt rushed, in my opinion. It just kind of, there was no need for that move. The first half didn't play so poorly that you need to kind of force a move. So I don't know if Brad Smith got hurt. Maybe that's something that I didn't know about, or he just couldn't go past 45 minutes. But the change in shape, the first several minutes in the second half, New York City were just able to press the back line so easily and win the ball in the Cincinnati half, right? And so I really don't know what if that's something that they practice in terms of playing in a back four, but it just felt like it was so unrehearsed. They were just as wide as their fullbacks were still playing as wing backs in the back four when they had possession, and there was really no support in those. No, it was a very confusing thing to see, and obviously didn't work out. So, it just felt like every chance Cincinnati got in the second half came off of a New York error rather than them building it on their own.
Yeah, you're right about that. And then if we look at the chances, they were decent half chances, but it wasn't anything that was you could hang your hat on and say it was close. I mean, the Dado header, that the keeper makes a save on. I think Denke had a ball to the top of the box that the keeper was forced to make a save, but nothing that was
they were all of them were weak shots too. Ender had a weak shot, Dado had a weak shot. Just put nothing on it.
Yeah, so again, coming out of it, you're still second in the East. You're 2 points behind Philly and Supporters Shield. I believe now, you're third technically, though, with I believe San Diego getting a draw. So, I mean, you're still in a decent position, but it just feels awkward, especially with how hyped we were about the transfer moves and then how much of a dud this match was. It's becoming a little bit more of a trend of things. We only had 13 touches in the opponent's box. And then kind of some stats that I had seen coming out of this one against the top half of the Eastern Conference this year, 3-6-2 with, remaining of Philly, Nashville, Orlando to come versus the bottom half this season of the Eastern Conference, 9-2-1. And then if we played out West, we would just be world beaters. We're 4-0-1 this season. So it's just, you're beating the teams that you should, but when it really comes down to it now at the end of the season, and especially, with playoffs looming, you have to start getting these results, and especially at home too. That's what's most frustrating, is feed off the energy of the crowd. I think Denke, you had seen even bring his hands up to try to get everyone going. And it's dude, we want to see it from you. Our fans are bringing it, let's see some action up top. So it was just a little bit off. Kenta, I want to shout out, a nice stat you had here. Goalkeeper for NYCFC, Matt Freese, had a quote actually saying, the team that I always play well against, I think, is probably Cincinnati. And certainly he's kind of backed that up. So now 11 matches, 43 saves, 10 goals conceded, 295 consecutive minutes without conceding a goal against us as well. So another guy that's just, dialed in. What are your thoughts on him playing against Cincinnati?
Oh, he's just been great in general. I mean, we've seen it with the U.S. men's national team. He's been fantastic. But yeah, I don't know if it's a level of comfort for him. I don't really know what it is, because you even go back to his Philly days. 2 matches, I think he had 2 shutouts against Cincinnati in his 2 matches that he played when he was in Philly. When Blake was hurt or whatever the reason was back then. Granted, those Cincinnati teams weren't particularly great, but it's still it's been a consistent that Freese barely concedes goals against Cincinnati. I think he had 1 game where he conceded 3. That's pretty much been about it. And so when the Cincinnati team's MO is we're gonna beat you 1-0 consistently, and then you're not able to score goals, I mean, they're doing exactly what you expect Cincinnati to do to their opposition. So no, it's surprising. That quote, I know it came out, I think, on some kind of short form content stuff that a lot of these media groups do now on TikTok and Instagram. I think it was Athletic that did it after the Gold Cup with Matt at that point. But it's unsurprising when you see the numbers, and he's certainly backed them up. So yeah, not surprising, I guess, the quote, but it's certainly, it's funny to see, right before I saw the quote, the video come up on my feed again, days before the match. And then, he goes on to put up another solid performance and a clean sheet. And it's okay, well,
He wasn't really tested either, though, is the thing. Like,
No.
I wish we had better chances against him. And, for our guys to be maybe a little bit more motivated about the situation, if we talk about storylines, like, in your guys' opinion, Sam, I'll ask you here first. Do you feel like the Supporter Shield is slipping away? We only have 6 matches left. We need a change of focus. Is it more of, we're going for the Cup versus the Shield now? What is your opinion on that?
Yeah, I mean, the Shield, it feels like it, right? Obviously. But once again, we just find ourselves still second in the East. And I know we'll touch on it later, but we play Philly next and we're only 2 points out, right? And if we win that match, guess what? We've got the East back. Depending on, what San Diego does, we'll have the Supporter Shield lead again. So it just, it ebb and flows. But right now, the feeling is it's slipping away. I don't think there should be a change of focus. I think Pat's always going to have, take it game by game. But obviously, Chris and his mindset, bringing in all the transfers, they're wanting to win anything and everything. Because here towards the end of the season, that's how it goes, right? You lead into Shield and then it goes straight into MLS Cup playoffs. So yeah, I think with 6 games left, there's still an opportunity to be able to do that. Now, is it going to be a tough 6 games? Yeah, it is. We're going to touch on that a little bit later. So I don't think there should be a change of focus though.
Kenta, yeah, would you echo that?
I'm in the mindset. I don't know if this is popular. I'm in the mindset that the transfer window signified that Cincinnati is focusing more on the Cup than the Shield. Like that to me was my takeaway. When you make so many moves at this stage, it to me signals like, hey, we're going to use the next 6 matches to prepare for the Cup, regardless of result. We're going to bring in a bunch of new players that haven't played with each other, that we're going to have to build chemistry and have them buy into a new tactical look and buy into the team. And we're going to ship off a bunch of players that understand the team and have been around the block for a minute. I think that the amount of moves that were made, it was like, okay, well, I don't think they're taking Cup as seriously as they did. And that's partly because Cincinnati just already won the Cup 2 years ago, right? So I think for fans, it's like we want to see the Shield, or not just the Shield. We want the Cup now.
Yeah.
Sorry, I mixed my words up.
No, you're good.
Like we want the Cup. I think that's what a lot of fans would say, which is understandable. I think there's a lot of banter online, back then of like what's more important. I think Cincinnati fans. I don't want to speak for everyone, but I think a majority of people would rather see the new trophy that they haven't seen yet, and get that star, I guess, on the kit, right? So, I don't think Cincinnati's particularly massively in contention for the Shield at this point. They've been a very league average team at home, and I think more of their matches are at home than on the road, if I'm correct in saying that.
Yeah.
I can't buy into it right now. I haven't seen the product in the field, and a bunch of the players, as proven as they've been, like Brenner's been proven in Cincinnati in the past. This is a different system. It's a different team with different players. I need to see it before I can kind of buy into it. So maybe, at the start of the playoffs, everyone's bought into it from what they see in the last couple matches. But until then, it's tough to say, well, these new signings are going to hit the ground running, and this team's going to make a run for the Shield. I find that hard to believe right now.
Yeah, no, I think that's a great point, especially, if you look at obviously the playoff format and, how you have to win these matches to move on and against these teams, and we just haven't proven that. But your point about, all these changes, I mean, that's got to affect the squad going into that. So, yeah, I think that's a good point. I would like to think Pat's mentality is, win every match and just see what happens. And at the end, if we're, Shield champs, great. But your point earlier about like change in formation, I don't know if that's a signal of like, hey, we're still trying to tinker a little bit and figure this out for playoffs in that setting. Obviously, this is before some of the other guys even joined, but maybe that's a little tip of the cap a little bit in some aspects. But I think they just want to find their true form, find out what works well, and really kind of hit the ground running towards that stretch run. But going into that, finding that true right wing back, is that becoming more of a problem than, what we may have thought even a week ago, because obviously DeAndre Yedlin in everybody's mind was locked in at least to the end of the season. So, whether that's Alvas Powell, if that's, Ender Echenike or is it Marzuk now, I think you're going to see, over the next 6 matches, somebody really grasp that spot and hopefully keep it. Because honestly, I think we need consistency there and in the back line. Hopefully that comes with getting people healthy as well. Because like I said, reinforcements are needed. We do have Miles out, Luciano. Is Miazga, going to be good coming out of this one? And the still potential of Obi coming back. So a lot of moving pieces there, and a team that, really has been, like you said, league average at home, done well on the road, and that's put us up high. But have we really played our best soccer for what this team could be? And I really want to see that sustainably over the last part of this, year. But again, it comes down to looking at, okay, the best attack duo in MLS, but we sit at 14 in goals scored too. So there's some cracks there that I think need to be addressed. Any thoughts on that, Sam?
No, yeah, I mean, you said it all there. I mean, reinforcements should be coming, hopefully, for those guys that are injured to be able to fill those gaps for the next couple of weeks until they get healthy. But yeah, I think in the back, obviously right wing back, and then up top, I think with the reinforcements at the striker position, you're finding a nuanced attack. So hopefully that ignites some new chances, some things we haven't seen. Maybe we actually get some headers scored on some corners or on some free kicks. I think that would be something new we've never seen. So, yeah. So I think obviously these are all things that need to be addressed. Will they? I don't know.
We'll find out, but we'll go to a break here. But before we do, trivia question. So trivia question of the week presented by Goals TV. When was the last time that FC Cincinnati had consecutive losses at home in MLS play? Kenta, I'm going to come to you first, or Sam, whoever wants to take it. Go ahead. If
My goodness, consecutive in like regular season play?
Regular season play.
Well, I know the team. I'm assuming by the fact that you asked this question, it's not this season. I don't think this question would have been asked if it was already happened. It already happened this past season. I don't remember all the results well enough. The team didn't play well last year, like down the stretch, and we're heading down the stretch right now. So I'll go September of last year. I don't have particular matches. I know that Cincinnati lost against LAFC at home, and I'm assuming there's a couple matches around there that because I think post Leagues Cup, the only one match they won that I remember at home was that CF Montreal match where they won like 3-1, 4-1. So I will assume that they weren't a bunch of draws and there's a couple of consecutive losses in there somehow, and I'll go September 2024.
Sam, what about you?
I don't know. I'm feeling same year, opposite vibes of Kenta. I feel like last year, obviously we all know last year was a big old roller coaster, right? We had winless streaks and we had win streaks, right? And it was season of streaks. So I think I'm going to go May of 2024, and we'll see how we are here.
Yeah, you guys will find out at the end of the episode. We'll be right back. Hey, everyone. Just a quick message from Ryan and Sam here at the Flying Lion Podcast. We wanted to share some exciting news with you. The Flying Lion Podcast has officially partnered with Chatterbox Sports. We are very excited to be a part of the Chatterbox community, as they have proven to give you the very best coverage of Cincinnati sports thus far.
For those who are new to the Flying Line Podcast, we cover FC Cincinnati news, game recaps, analysis, and unique segments such as our trivia question of the week, jersey swap of the week, card of the week. Give us a listen on our post-match shows on every away game on Chatterbox YouTube and our weekly episodes wherever you get your podcast. Thank you again for your support.
Welcome back, everyone. Thanks again for joining us on tonight's episode. I know it wasn't a great week from result standpoints, but at least we did have some transfers coming in. I think that's always a fun time to see, what guys are going to be playing for this team, especially in important moments here towards the end of the season. It was a losing week, so Kenta, we always start with our cards of the week here first. Sam, I'll come to you here first. Any specific card you want to shout out?
I'm nothing specific for me, but just card of the week is the timing of FC Cincinnati's transfer window. of course, while I'm out, they decided to have one of the best transfer windows we've ever seen in club history. And, it was difficult, obviously, for me being off my phone and not immediately researching, what happened and why it happened. Luckily, I had Ryan texting me, so I was able to look at that after, the time being. But yeah, all jokes aside, Chris cooked once again on paper. So I think it's just time to make it happen on the field.
Yeah, sorry about all the texts. I felt like it was like for 3 days straight while you were on your honeymoon, just like we did this, and this guy might be coming in, and then this, and then this. So hopefully, Caitlin, hopefully you're not too mad at me about that. But Kenta, did you have a specific card that you want to shout out? And it's okay if not.
I have two. One is completely unrelated to soccer, and one is
that's
related
to
soccer.
The best.
I'll start with the non-soccer one. For my Cincinnati people here that go to Costco, they brought the smoothie back. It's been off the menu for a minute, which doesn't make any sense, right? It's in the middle of the summer. I don't know why we're taking a $2.99 smoothie off of the menu. It's quite frustrating because it's the best deal in town when it's hot out. I want a smoothie, and you move to Coke, which is fine. I'm a big Mountain Dew person, so I was already kind of frustrated with that. And then you take the smoothie off the menu and leave me with like just ice cream. Like that's not what I wanted. So very happy this week that the smoothie, or I guess technically last week, the smoothie came back onto the menu. That is my I'm very happy about that. But yeah, just why are we switching menus so much at Costco right now? That's if I have to put a card, I guess it's just give me my Mountain Dew back. I want my Mountain Dew back now. Yeah. At the fountain. I don't know. Moving to Coca-Cola was very, very frustrating. I go to Costco quite a lot. I live right up I live in Westchester, so it's very close to me. And it's a very good deal. For soccer, because we should go back to the sport. The card has to be that we're still not in a aligned with the European calendar. Like we saw how good this window was. And I cover J League very intensely, and J League is moving to a fall to spring calendar post World Cup. So they're going to play out they have the same schedule right now. They're going to play out the remainder of this season. They're going to play a short mini season, league play, which is super fun. At the start of 2026, they'll have an extended World Cup break, and they're starting a full season at the end of the fall. It felt like an even better timing for MLS to do so with the World Cup being here. And yet they don't take advantage of it. And we saw how good this window would be so much better if these players are getting integrated at the start of the season and not with 6 matches left in the regular season. So it's really frustrating when you see players like Son, Muller, Rodrigo de Paul. You're seeing so many big name players coming here, and they're seeing 6 matches in the regular season. I'd like to see them have a proper get some time off in the summer and off season, and then get into preseason, have a full season from the jump rather than joining in during the summer, but a handful of matches left. So I think as exciting of an opportunity this was, and a window it was, it's an opportunity missed at the same time, because it's what could have been if we would have started our season now. Even for Cincinnati, if the season started now with the moves that they made, we'd be having a completely different conversation leading into preseason. It's okay, well, this attacking trio now, how good are they going to be over the course of a full season rather than 6 matches and hoping they gel before the playoffs?
Sure. Yeah, and I think that's a good point, just because you're losing out too for some of the other teams that hold out towards the end of the window. You make those deals later on, it's a disadvantage for us versus the other teams, where they're just starting out. They might have more time in their window as well. So that's a really good point. I think I shouted that out on the last episode as well too, was just the fact that we don't have much time, for these guys to integrate. And that's a huge disadvantage in this league, especially with those big name guys, coming in. So I liked your first part of your card, though. I think that's appropriate.
Yeah. Well, didn't have enough time to integrate with the smoothie either.
That's true.
Yeah, unbelievable. They also brought back the same smoothie. It wasn't like a new recipe. It's the same strawberry banana smoothie. All right. So why did it disappear off the menu? And I from what I know, it's not a nationwide thing. It's just a Cincinnati thing between the 3 locations around the tri-state area. It's what are we doing?
Don't play with my heart, says Kenta.
Exactly. Don't play with my smoothie. I like the deal. That's why I have a membership.
That's amazing. Sam,
Ryan,
on
what you
the
got?
flip side,
Yeah.
did you have a jersey swap of the week?
Well, are you gonna give your card, or are you gonna?
Oh yeah, I totally forgot to give my card. I was so caught up in it. There's a lot of cards going on.
Ryan was thinking
But
about the smoothie.
anyway, yeah, I was thinking about the smoothie. I actually really wanted one now. I'm going to go with the PK decision for St. Louis versus Vancouver. Just another moment where Pro just missed it completely. I think this Vancouver player is running in a straight line and trips, and somehow like this play wasn't called. They were called to VAR. They go and look at it, and they still make the decision that there was contact there, and they get a PK that leads to a Vancouver win. It's just a wild moment for that to happen. You know, is there anything to say like Mueller's getting his first win and his first goal and this and that? Like, it makes you wonder, because if you guys go and watch the video, I'm sure you have, it's just a terrible decision. And we've seen countless, decisions like this season. We've been on the receiving end of one, a few weeks ago. So Sam, did you happen to see this?
Yeah. I saw this, and if I'm Thomas Mueller, this is not how I want to score my first goal and win my first game, right?
Oh, he doesn't care though. I mean,
no, I'm just saying, like, as a competitor, right? You're going like, well, maybe when he goes back in the locker room, he's like, man, we really got away with one there. Like, appreciate it, but thanks.
Yeah. A little rough. Kenta, any thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, also Sonny scored his first goal in very different fashion, both dead ball situations. But holy crow, we're talking about same night, and I wasn't in particular watching the late matches, so I was just scrolling on Twitter and watching the highlight videos, and Sonny scored and Mueller scored. I was like, terrific. And then I watched the replay of both, and it's starkingly different. So, yeah, it's just not a foul, right? I don't understand what the VAR saw to call up. Maybe, I think a lot of fans are like, maybe he had a camera angle. I don't think there's a camera angle in the world that would have proven that was a penalty. So yeah, it's
there's
just
something going on there.
It's a shocking decision, but I will add that this is not an MLS exclusive thing. We've seen it in the Prem with the starting over again. Like, there's been some shocking calls over there that you're just looking at and you're like, what are we doing? So at least, the Prem, I guess, is considered the most competitive or the best league right now in terms of popularity. Even that league has officiating issues. So MLS is not alone. And I guess you can live with that and say, okay, at least it's not exclusively a pro referee MLS situation, which I guess makes it sting a little less.
Yeah. I just don't understand how video is supposed to make it better. And yet, here we are with all of this. It's just terrible. But I'm going to go flip side first, because I'm going to forget to say my jersey swap. But Chris Albright, I would love to trade jerseys with you this week, man. You killed it. You did really well. We talked about it a lot in the first half of the episode. But, for all the haters about, how the roster was constructed and this and that and who we were bringing in and not, he really did well. And honestly, I didn't, see a lot of bad words come out of anyone's mouth about it. So I was very happy to see the moves that we had.
Yeah, I mean, I'd swap suit jackets with him too. I mean, the guy did a phenomenal job once again, continues to.
You're gonna say because he had like nice suits on or something.
That's probably accurate as well.
Well, he's not wearing a jersey,
true.
Ryan. You got to swap suits. So, but yeah, I think once again, Chris cooked. Regardless of how the players do on the field, obviously we want them to do well, but on paper, I think it just goes to show the pedigree in which, he kind of wants to continue to make Cincinnati and, elevate us. Unlike the other teams in the city, right? FC Cincinnati is looked at as, hey, these guys are competitors. They will come to compete every single year on the field with their pocketbooks, etc. So I look forward to continuing to see that.
Yeah, it's refreshing, especially from a Cincinnati, franchise standpoint of things. But that's a deeper dive for a different time. Kenta, did you have a jersey swap?
I'll go with someone else. It's good to see Yia back.
Yeah,
and talk about. I guess this jersey's back there, isn't it? To talk about a player that right now, the lack of just versatility on this roster at times. And looking at, we don't have a right wing back. Well, there's another option right there that has played there plenty of times and gives you extra midfield depth. It's kind of the player that we didn't really know how long it was going to be until he see the pitch again. I know he was kind of training back, so it's like maybe he'll be available. But at this stage of the season, to have someone that can play as many positions as he can, with the fact that this team made so many different changes, and now you have a lot of players trying to get acclimated, that's a big deal because now you can start him, you can put him off the bench, and you can play him in like 7 out of 11 positions on the pitch. It's pretty ideal if you're Pat Noonan. So I don't think his performance was incredible against New York City, but just the fact that he was on the pitch for me is, I guess, just a big deal and worthy of a jersey swap, I suppose.
Yeah, I mean, he's going to be overlooked, obviously by the new names coming in, but honestly, it's kind of like gaining another transfer in because he has been out for so long. And the versatility that he brings, I think that's a great point, whether you play him, in a backup role in the midfield, or I don't think, at this point with all the new strikers and everyone coming up top, you probably don't see a lot of minutes from him there, maybe more out wide. It is really his spot to gain now. And maybe he goes out and grabs that right wing back spot. We've seen him be solid on defense. Could he add his, offensive side of things too? I think that's a great shout. So something to look for if he can, again, round into form now, like we've said with several of these guys, and really gel with the pieces that we currently have. But Sam, what about you? Jersey swap.
Yeah, to pick a player here, not the best game overall for FC Cincinnati, but Lucas Engel, I thought he played pretty well at left center back, and continues to. He had the most defensive actions in this match, and as a guy who came in as our left back, to be able to fill that hole at the beginning of the season, to be able to just continue game after game, to sit there on the left side of either Miazga, Miles Robinson, Hagglund, whoever's playing in the middle there, and be able to, give a pretty decent performance week in, week out. Obviously, we've got our critiques, here or there each game, but he's able to, play a role that he hasn't normally done, and he plays it pretty solid at the MLS level. So my only critique would be that header that he had at the end of the game, just it going straight up into the air. Maybe if we can get that one on goal, I'd give him a little bit more higher praise.
Yeah, Kenta, I don't know if I've asked you your opinion on this. I mean, he's had a pretty solid season. Like Sam said, he's pretty versatile in what we can see. Number one, moving forward, I'll ask you, you think he's more left center back or left wing back? And then secondarily, do you think we purchase that, or I guess, do we trigger that purchase for him? He's on loan with the purchase option. So I'll ask you those questions.
I think he's more of a left center back. I don't know how much he brings in attacking. We've seen it. I also, just looking at the personnel on this roster, like there are a lot of attacking minded players that can play at that left wing back role. And you're just kind of telling them, hey, you have to track back, rather than, trying to force a player that's more defensive minded into an offensive attacking role. So if I had to pick, I'd assume he's more of a left center back. And but at the same time, you have great center backs. So once Miles comes back, and you also have Teenage who can play on the left side as a left-footed center back, who Pat really likes to have. The left-footed guy on the left side of the back three. So we'll see. I think he's a player you kind of have to start, but it also depends on what kind of team you're playing. If you have a team that likes to exploit the wide areas, you're probably going to play Engel at wing back to kind of give you more defensive stability. If teams that like to play a bit narrow, then you're going to get your attacking minded players, whether that's Luca or whether that's anyone else, right? To play at that left wing back to try to exploit the wide space on the counter or in possession. So I think the versatility is certainly there. So not sure if he has a position that's that much better than the other, but if I had to pick, it's probably center back. I don't know if they're going to trigger the purchase option, He's not like super young, but he's also not old. He's like 25, 26. So he kind of fits into the mold of like the crop of players that are here right now. And he's clearly had a good season, considering he's coming into a new league and he's playing with a new system and new coach and everything that goes with making a transfer across the pond. I think I'd like to see him stay, but I think finance is also a very difficult thing, and I'm not sure if Albright and Noonan look at this in the offseason, they say, well, we can get a younger option in here. And also the fact that, if they're playing that back three and he's not playing as a left back, it's like, well, so we'll see what it looks like. But I'd like to see him stay, but I have my doubts, I guess.
Yeah, no, I totally agree with that. I think he's had a great season. He's versatile, but like you said, like if there's better options either at that center back role, or if you say, well, hey, maybe we want Luciano to play there and that's this guy's preferred position, what are we going to do with that? It's an interesting thought. So stay tuned for that one. We have a lot of guys that are on loan or, with Barrial outbound too. I don't think Barrial's coming back, but more of the guys that are in with us now. Do we keep them or not? That'll be the question. But a lot of soccer to be played before that. We are going to do a quick breakdown here of the FC Cincinnati 2 match against Carolina Core. There was a match, I believe, just yesterday. We lost, unfortunately, 2-3. They came in unbeaten at home since June 3rd, which is pretty cool to see. Playing over at NKU. Sam's happy about that one. But it was interesting to see Steven Jimenez got a goal. I think he's on a little bit of a hot run of form here. We had another guy get his first career MLS Next Pro goal with Monseru, but unfortunately it wasn't enough. I think they played to a 2-2 tie, and then I think Carolina got one late. So we sit only 3 points outside of the playoff line right now. I know that's a lot better than where we were at towards the beginning of the season. And they've had some good stretches and runs of form, so hopefully they can do that. They're going to be playing the Philly Union 2 team, which has just been a powerhouse historically. But lately they've lost 3 out of their last 4. I don't think they have Kevin Sullivan as well. I know he's been doing a lot more first team minutes this year. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see coming down to the stretch for them too. I think they'll hopefully kind of round out their form as well. But Sam, any thoughts?
No, yeah, I think hopefully, like you said, we're able to get up and above that line to at least make the playoffs, make something happen. And I think already for this FCC2 squad, I think you've seen growth. And that once again, that's the biggest thing, is that's what we want to see out of our second team, is the growth, inside the squad. And being able to see a guy like Steven Jimenez, not only show out on the first team, but also continue it in the second team. So hopefully we see him maybe in the first team, sub in when needed.
Yeah, he made the most of his chance, I felt like. And, I'm glad that he's kind of continuing his form. He's probably not going to get as many looks towards the end of the season with the first team. So, Kent, I'm going to ask you, do you think we see more of like a loan move for him in the future to get maybe more first team type minutes, or do you think Next Pro is a good spot for him right now? He's still pretty young.
Yeah, no, I've had this conversation about MLS Next Pro with a multitude of people, including former FC Cincinnati player Joey Apanunu, I guess most recently, a couple months ago. And it's from what I've, the conversations I've had, it's such a weird and interesting environment, because you have academy players coming up, you have regulars on the second team, and then you have first team players coming down. So it's very difficult, I think, at the Next Pro level to find consistency, just purely because you have so many moving parts every single match day.
Right.
And particularly with Steven, I think he's a guy that would really benefit from playing regular minutes at one team. Mm-hmm. I know tactically the second team and the first team play very similar roles, so it's easy to just kind of look at it on the surface level and say, well, you can just kind of plug and play. But I think there is something to be said about a player playing in one team with the same guys around him on a week-to-week basis, with the same coach. Like, Steven's training with the first team and then playing on match days with the second team. That's not necessarily a recipe to grow as much as people would want to claim. It's just to get minutes to stay fit more than actually developing as a player. So if we're talking about development of a player, I think moves to something like USL Championship or even League One is USL League One. It's a good thing, and we've seen a lot of players from Next Pro make that move, technically speaking, in the pyramid up,
right?
And they've found a lot of success. USL Championship is a very, very competitive league, It's more physical. You have like grown men to put it lightly, right? In USL Championship that are fighting for contracts. So like it's not just you're playing high school kids, college kids that are playing next pro minutes. You have like true pros that have been in the league and been around the block, that have played in MLS, that have played internationally, playing their minutes there. So I think it's good for his growth, especially as a midfielder, to kind of go through a full season where you're playing against guys that are stronger, bigger, faster than you at times, and to get those regular minutes in that sense. So for his development's sake, I think I would say the same thing for Dado as well with the Brenner move. If he does stay and you do sign him, there's no real clear opening for him next year. I'd like to see them like get regular minutes and develop into better players in something like USL Championship. I think there's a lot of teams out there that would, like even like Louisville. I know it's a big rivalry, but like from the past, but like schematically they play a very similar 3-4-3. Like he would fit perfectly into that midfield, Stephen Wood, and like that would be a really their coaching staff is incredible. So like I think there's like a lot of fits there where like Cincinnati should, in my opinion, make those moves to try to get them into the best spot for development. But we'll see what happens, because there's always stuff like the injury bug where you want to have players available and at your disposal. So that's kind of, I guess, the benefit of MLS Next Pro.
Yeah, no, that's a great point. I think unfortunately, with him, he's been the guinea pig for this. Like for our staff, who's really the first guy that we've brought through. Maybe Kimi, a little bit too, and then loaned him out. It didn't really work out a ton. But to have him around the first team, then go back to the second, first, training, playing matches, like that's a lot for a player, like you said. And I think consistency for a full season to see him play, would be good, because the last several seasons he's been so up and down. And we haven't really had to, or gotten to see that. And in the minutes that he had this year, he impressed. So I think that's a good shout. But coming back to the first team, we do have a match day at home again against Philly, a big one, with major Shield implications, like Sam mentioned earlier on in the episode. Our next 3 home matches come against the top 4 in the Eastern Conference. So if we're going to go for this, the time is now. And I think it starts here. We had a big loss against Philly away, and I hope at least some of the players were a little upset about that and more motivated about this too, seeing that, look, this is the team that we're gunning for. There's no bigger moment than that, obviously, than besides playing your rival too. So, again, TQL, we're going to be rocking. Everyone's going to be there. We just need a little bit more vibes, I would say, from the team. Maybe, the transfer window and the timing of some guys out played into that, like we mentioned. But do we see kind of some new guys come and join? So we'll talk about lineup wise here. I'm going to ask you guys and start with Sam here first. Is Brenner going to be on the bench, Sam? What are your thoughts? And then secondarily, what are your thoughts about some injured guys coming back too?
Yeah. Gosh, that's a tough question, because like you said, that's a whole hodgepodge of guys that are either coming back or coming into the squad, and Pat's gonna kind of figure out where these guys go.
In such an important match.
Yeah, in a very important match. So, I mean, quality-wise, it's almost like, do you just throw the best quality out there, right? Regardless of how they're feeling, because we've got a deep squad. So if Pat feels like, hey, like this guy's not, he's coming off of, the injury, whether it be, somebody like Miles or Ashano, right? We have people that we can plug and give a little bit more energy to. And so honestly, that would be my way to go, is just like quality wise, put the best 11 on the field. And, obviously not ideal. Like Kenta had stated here last game, subbing a guy on, the first 45 minutes going, let's just change the formation here. So hopefully if they do make a change at the 45, it's not formation wise, it's just player fatigue or, anything like that. But I would probably look to have that happen.
Kenta, any thoughts about, lineup for next week, or even you guys joining, maybe even starting 11 or more like bench action?
Yeah, I'd assume Brenner's on the bench. I mean, I don't know. Tactics from like when he was back here haven't particularly changed that much, I don't think. The look hasn't been that different. And he had a full preseason with Udinese. remember he played against Shabab Ali of the UAE Pro League, and I think Udinese lost that match, but like he still, started that match. Like he's been playing regular minutes in the preseason, so he had a full preseason. Ultimately, not in the plans for Udinese long term or in the short term this season either. So that's why the loan happens. But like he should be in form in terms of like fitness. So I would expect him to be available. And maybe that's just me expecting everyone who's fit to be available for selection. And when you have someone of his quality, for him to at least make the bench if you're at home. But we'll see. I like from you mentioned the big loss early in the year in like March again at Philly at Subaru Park, and Gosdog scored a brace in that, or assisted 2 goals or whatever it was. I mean, he was a big factor. He's no longer there. They brought in a new big player, I guess. But like as a whole, like it's still Philly. Like Ty Baribo's scoring full goals for fun. Their team's very still solid defensively. So and Quinn Sullivan's having a great year, talking about Sullivan. But I guess we'll keep an eye on Milan Milošti. He came over very recently, but he's torn up the league in terms of the short matches that he's played so far. And it's this Philly team's they've been consistent. I mean, that's why they're also at the top of the table right now, right? Aside from, I guess, that like Red Bulls loss, like they've been very good aside from that one loss. So I'd expect them to bring their A game. They want to win, and they also want to win the Shield. I'm guessing. So I don't expect a ton of changes in the 11, but I am hoping that Brenner is an addition to the matchday roster one way or another.
Yeah, we need to change a little bit from an offensive standpoint. I think, just it hasn't quite been there with Kai, quite hasn't, been there with Ender, I think, too. So I think you'll see some tweaks personally with that. If I had to ask you, Kenta, for a prediction, what are your thoughts on that?
Well, if we kind of go back to that match, it was a smaller pitch at Subaru Park. They like to press very high, very aggressively, and this is nothing new from the coaching staff at Philly, or I guess it technically is new because it's a new coaching staff. But it's nothing new with Bradley Cardinal, I guess, is what I should clarify. They like to press high. They like to win the ball, and with the ball playing slow, from what we saw this past weekend, that might actually play to their benefit if Cincinnati aren't as clean and precise with their passing. So I will go with a 1-1 draw, but I'm not very optimistic with how this match is going to go based off of what we saw this past weekend in particular.
Sam, what about you?
Yeah, I kind of feel the same way, except Brenner scores a late game winner and the fans go crazy. But no, I think FC Cincinnati hopefully shifts something into gear late in the game, especially like Ryan said, like some of those guys may, have that in the back of their mind what happened in March and go, hey, we're not going to get embarrassed, not at home. So Ryan, thoughts?
Yeah, I got to go with a 1-0 victory for FC. I think just a more motivated group, obviously playing the team that you're gunning for, and just being kind of upset about how the last match kind of went. I think they were a little bit maybe surprised by how that went, and then coming out of that upset because, vibes have been pretty good after Portland. You feel pretty solid about the goals you scored there and winning on the road. Coming back home, like you almost, I don't want to say like get too comfortable, but they've been comfortable. So I really want to see a little bit of more edginess out of them and a little bit more fight, especially against the team that's at the top right now. So I'm going to go still with a 1-0 victory. A number 8, by the way, Brenner getting that goal. That would be pretty cool. It'll be weird seeing him rock the 8 instead of 9. But 8, 9, and 10, if all three play together up top, will be pretty fun. So the side note from that, by the way, was that Giddy took the number 11, and I think he should have been really the number 8, and Brenner maybe should have taken the 11. That's a side note for that one, and for a different time. But yeah, I hope that Orshano's back for it. Miles, hopefully, from all that I'm hearing, hopefully is there. And Miazga potentially coming out of this last match, healthy too. That'll make a difference on the back line. So all that being said, hopefully a good result for us. But we'll close it out here with the trivia question and answer. If I remind you guys, when was the last time that FC Cincinnati had consecutive losses at home in MLS play? To preface, we did just have those 2 in a row. So Kenta was right. It is not this year that I'm, including in this. But it was actually last July. So we had lost 2 in a row last July. It was right before Leagues Cup break, actually. I was a little bit surprised by it, to be honest with you. I thought it was down the stretch as well. Kenta, I think you had locked in was September, and Sam, you said May, I believe.
Yeah, we met in the middle, and the answer was July.
Yeah, so it was July 13th against Charlotte, and then against Chicago, actually, was the other one. And then I believe right after that against New York Red Bulls, too. So it was actually 3 in a row. Well, actually, JK, that was on the road, so it was just 2. But still, the fact goes with, Cincinnati doesn't really lose consecutive matches at home. I don't think we've lost 3 in a row in TQL in a long, long time, maybe 2021, 2020. Well, 2021, I guess, was the first year. So we'll see what happens. Kenta, we want to thank you again for joining us tonight. Any closing thoughts and your thoughts, I guess, about the rest of the season?
I'll add one more tidbit. I wish Brenner would have not picked 8 and would have picked a number that started with a 9 and a 2-digit number, because we lost Yedlin, and it's kind of fun to have a big number on the roster.
Yep.
If it's a loan, and
He could have been 99.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
Anything besides 8, it just doesn't. I'm not sure why.
That would have been a funny thing to do to Denke. Like, do a 99. He's like,
yeah.
well, I've got 2 9s, so
Twice the player you are.
yeah. The 9 for the last time I was here, and the 9 for this time I'm here.
Exactly. It would have been fun, especially because I loved Yedlin wearing 91. It was super fun. Just big numbers are always fun to see on kits. So I guess I'm slightly disappointed that he chose a single-digit number that wasn't 9. But alas, what am I going to do? Go up to him and complain? That's not going to happen.
No, I love that. I think it was interesting. Maybe he switches at the end of the season or hears from the fans like, actually, you should go to this. But regardless, thanks again for joining us tonight. And again, thanks to Kenta for joining. I'm sure we'll have you on at some point in the future, but we will see you guys next time.